Hello! Let me welcome you to our science class this morning. My name is Mrs. Mayan O. Garcia and I will be handling your grade 8 science for this school year. For our first topic, let me introduce to you Module 1, Week 1, entitled Force. This lesson is inclined with the most essential learning competency. And the aim of this lesson is for you to be able to investigate the relationship between the amount of force applied and the mass of the object to the amount of change in the object's motion. So for this lesson, we will be looking at the most essential factors for you to be able to describe force. And these are force, mass, and motion. To the learners, for you to enjoy the topic and learn best, here are some things that you should remember. Number 1, think thoroughly about the contents of the lesson. This will help you develop your critical thinking. Number 2, stay sharp and read the directions first before doing an activity. For a good scientist is objective. Number 3, answer the questions and activities based on your understanding of the lesson. This is a part of being honest. Number 4, be curious as you ponder about different examples given in the module. Number 5, demonstrate perseverance in completing all the learning tasks in the module. And lastly, be open-minded as you communicate and discuss things with your peers. We all know that forces are being applied to our day-to-day life, and this lesson aims for you to be able to use and utilize those ideas about forces in your day-to-day life. In this lesson, specifically, you should be able to do the following at the end of the module. Number 1, you will be able to define inertia. So, what do we mean when we say inertia? Number 2 is for you to relate inertia to mass. So, what do you think is the relationship between inertia and mass? Number 3, explain the law of inertia. So, what does it mean? So, aside from explaining what is the law of inertia, you should also be able to state the law itself. The number 4, relate inertia to stopping forces like friction. We all know that friction is also a kind of force. Next, cite situations where the law of inertia applies. So, this is very important. What do forces, or rather what do inertia try to give us when it comes to our day-to-day life? When do we experience or when do we apply this kind of law? Number 6, show the effect of force and mass on acceleration. So what is the relationship between force, mass, and acceleration? Number 7, state Newton's second law of motion, which is the law of acceleration. That is because for your week 1, module 1, you will be having two different kinds of laws of motion. These are the laws of inertia, the law of inertia and the law of acceleration. So, the aim of this lesson is for you to be able to explain and state those two kinds of laws. And then for number 8, you will be able to solve problems involving law of acceleration. So, I am going to introduce the formula in getting the amount of acceleration. Let us answer your pretest. This is found in your module copy on page 2. Let me read to you the instruction. Read the questions carefully. Write the letter of the correct answer on the blank provided before the number. In your case, since you already prepared your interactive science notebook/module notebook, your answers should be written on the module part. Write the title Pretest and then number your papers 1 to 5 and then just write the correct answers. There's no need for you to copy the question. Just write the letter of the correct answers only. This is good for 5 minutes and your time starts now. Okay, time is up. Now let us check your work. Let me read the first question. Question number 1. Which of the following refers to the tendency of an object to resist change in their state of motion? That is correct. The answer is letter B, inertia. Number 2. Which law of motion explains the relationship between the force applied to an object and its rate of change in velocity? Yes, that is correct also. Letter A, acceleration. Number 3. What force is the result of unbalanced forces acting on an object? That is right. Letter C, net force. Number 4, heavier objects are harder to move than lighter ones. Based on this, which of the following measures inertia? That is right. Letter B, mass. And for the last question, which of the following devices is installed in vehicles to ensure the safety of the passenger when the vehicle suddenly stops? Okay, that is correct. A seat belt. So count all the scores and then write it down on the side over the total number of items. So that is over 5. Did you get it right? Good job. Now, let us proceed with the next part of your module, which is the looking back. For you to be able to understand the next lesson, which is about the laws of motion, it is important that you have a strong foundation of the lessons that you have already learned when you were in grade 7. What are these? So the difference between distance and displacement. So when we say distance, it is the total length of the actual path traveled by a moving body. So this is considered as a scalar quantity because it only refers to the magnitude. What do we mean when we say magnitude? Magnitude is the combination of numbers and unit. Let's say 7 meters or 5 meters or 10 kilometers. The numbers refers to the numerical data and the units such as kilometers and meters and meters. While displacement is a vector quantity that refers to the object's overall change in the position. So there are two factors that you need to consider here, the magnitude and the direction. So for you to be able to distinguish which is a distance and a displacement, there are a few things to remember. Number 1, distance is a scalar quantity while displacement is a vector quantity. Distance only refers to the magnitude while displacement refers to the magnitude and the direction. Let us have an example. This is an actual classroom setup, whereas a teacher is standing at the front of the student. If the teacher walks from point A to point B with a length of 7 meters, then it will be referred to as her distance. Why? If the teacher moves from A to B, her distance is 7 meters. 7 meters referring to the magnitude, while her displacement is 7 meters west. So you are going to connect the direction with the magnitude. So again, when we talk about distance, it only refers to one, which is the magnitude, while a displacement is a combination of magnitude and direction. Another thing that you have learned when you were in grade 7 is the difference between speed and velocity. Well, actually, they are somehow related to one another. Why? When we talk about speed, it refers to how fast a body is moving. So, gaano siya kabilis o gaano siya kabagal. That is with respect to time, because speed is a distance covered per unit time of travel. While in velocity, it is the time rate of change of displacement. So, we will be using distance for speed while displacement for velocity. To furtherly discuss this, let us take a look at this formula. So, again, when we talk about speed, it is the travel distance per unit time. So, enable for us to calculate speed, we use the formula speed is equal to distance over time, or the symbol for distance is d, the symbol for time is t, and the symbol for speed is s. So all you need to do is to divide distance by time. And then the unit will be meter per second or kilometer per hour. While in velocity, v stands for the speed or the velocity itself, and then d is the distance traveled or the displacement, and t is the time taken for the object to travel. So in this case, for the velocity, we will also be using the same unit, which is meter per second or kilometer per hour. But in relation to this, you must add the direction. Either if the object is going north, south, east, or west, or up, down, left, or right. One of the best example of this is the use of Waze. Waze is being used by Grab drivers or different classifications of job that requires traveling. So for them to be able to identify how long will they take for them to be able to arrive at a certain place, they need to use this kind of application so that they will be able to identify the length from which they traveled and the direction from which they are going to. So, let us have a short quiz about this lesson, whereas I believe that some of you have already been taking in when you were in grade 7. So, I hope that some of you have already remembered this lesson. So, kindly bring out again your module and answer page 2 and 3. So, in your copy, you will be seeing this, looking back. In grade 7, you have discussed distance or the total path traveled covered in motion, and displacement, which is the object's overall change in the position. Now, let us try to find out if you still remember this kind of simple scenario. So, we have here a bunny rabbit that is traveling in a rectangular path. So, the distance that the rabbit traveled is 2 meters going east, 1 meter going downward or south, and then 2 meters going west, and then 1 meter going up. What will be the total distance or displacement of the bunny rabbit? A rabbit follows a rectangular path as illustrated in figure 1. Can you tell what is its total distance covered as a displacement of the rabbit? Please answer this activity. This is good for 5 minutes only. Then after that, we will check again your work. So, in this activity, you should first get the total distance and the displacement of the rabbit, and then use that data enable for you to solve the speed and its velocity. You need to use the time, which is 10 seconds. So, let's do this. 5 minutes starts now. Okay, time is up. Now let us have the answer for your activity. So the total distance covered by the rabbit is how much? Correct. So that is equivalent to 6 meters. How do we get 6 meters? You will just add 2 plus 1 plus 2 and 1 meter overall. So the total path that the rabbit traveled is 6 meters. While the displacement is what? Nagkaroon ba ng change ng direction yung rabbit? Pumunta siya ng east. Pumunta siya ng south. And then nag-west. And then tumaas ulit. So, bumalik siya sa kanyang dating position. If there is no change in the direction of an object in this particular scenario, the rabbit, then there will be no displacement. Because there is no change in the direction. Although nagkaroon siya ng change sa magnitude, but the direction does not have any data. So this will become 0. So from this data, let us solve the speed and the velocity. Since for the speed we will be using distance, we need to replace 6 here and then time 10 meters here. Then let us substitute the value. Distance is equivalent to 6 meters and then time is 10 seconds. Okay, now let us divide. So 6 divided by 10 cannot be, so you borrow or you add a decimal place and then put a 0 and that will become 60. 60 divided by 10, okay, good, that is 6. So the total answer will be 0.6. So what will be our final answer? You must include the unit, which is meter per second. So 0.6 meter per second. What about in the velocity? So since the total number of displacement covered by the rabbit is 0, because there is no change in the direction, then the displacement here should be, yes, 0. And then the time traveled will be, correct, 10 seconds. So let us substitute the value. The displacement will be, okay, 0 and then divided by 10 seconds. So 0 divided by 10 is equivalent to, yes, 0. So the final answer will be 0. Then will it have a unit? So particularly in some books, they usually discourage the use of unit when the value is 0. But since we will be talking about velocity, kindly include meter per second as well. So the answer or the unit should be meter per second. So this is equivalent to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Over 15. So kindly check your work and write the total number of items. Okay, great. Now, I think that all of you are already prepared with our lesson. So by those different terminologies, which are distance, displacement, speed, and velocity, let us use those ideas enabled for us to describe what is a force and motion. So when we say force, it is a push or a pull of an object to either stop its movement, move an object, or change the direction of an object. So whenever you push or move the object away from your body, or pull an object, move an object towards your body, you are applying force. With this kind of forces, you can have the following factors. Number 1, you can stop a movement. So, kung merong object na gumagalaw, pwede mo siyang mapahinto. You can also move an object. So, yung object na nakahinto, pwede mo namang mapagalaw. And then, you can also change the direction of an object. Let's say the object is traveling in a straight line. Once you applied force, you can change the direction of that object. So, since forces can move objects, this movement is known as motion. When we say motion, it is the change in the position of an object. So, from point A to point B. The reason why we studied this kind of idea is because of the contribution of Sir Isaac Newton during the 1600s. So, he was born in 1642 and died on 1727. Isaac Newton is an English scientist and mathematician, famous for his discovery of the law of gravity and the three laws of motion. Dahil sa kanyang naging discovery at malalim na pag-aaral about forces, knowing na 1600s pa to, up until this very moment, we are still applying those lessons in our daily lives. Meaning, malaki ang naging impact nitong discovery na to ni Isaac Newton dahil dito, nade-derive natin yung mga phenomenon kung bakit or na-explain natin kung bakit nangyayari yung mga certain phenomenons na yon, such as the movements of objects or what is the reason why those objects stop or why do those objects that are in a rest position suddenly move. So, na-explain natin siya. Hindi siya nalileft behind as questionable. Okay? So, these ideas was published in a book called Philosophia Naturalis Principia Mathematica, or in English, Mathematic Principles of Natural Philosophy in 1687. Today, these laws are known as Newton's law of motion and describe the motion of all objects on a scale we experience in our daily lives. So, malaki ang pasasalamat natin kay Isaac Newton. Kung meron kayong nakikitang picture na isang scientist na nakaupo sa ilalim ng puno at may nahulog na apple sa kanya, yon, that is Isaac Newton. He was known for that kind of picture. Okay, so one of the things that Isaac Newton wants us to remember is how do we get the total net force? Let us use the following ideas. So, if the forces have the same direction, all you need to do is to add those forces to get the total amount of net force. But, if the forces are in opposite direction, all you need to do is to subtract them. Remember these keys. If the net force is 0, the object is at full stop. So, kapag 0 yung net force natin, yung object ay nakahinto. There is no negative net force. Always subtract the higher force with the smaller one. So, let us try to review this concept. Let's say that in a box, there is a 95 Newton. Newton is the unit of force, which is applied to the box in a downward direction. While on the other side, we have 45 Newtons going up. So, since the directions of the forces are in opposite, we need to subtract it. So, 95 minus 45 is equivalent to 50 Newton. Easy, right? Okay, another example is, if the directions are the same, again with the same box, one person applied 73 Newton, while the other one applied 37 Newton. So, since they have the same direction of forces, all you need to do is to add them as well. So 73 plus 37 is equivalent to 110 Newton. And then for the last one, so let's say one person pushes the box going to the right and the other one going to the left with the same amount of forces. All you need to do is to subtract them because the directions are opposite. So 87 minus 87 is equivalent to 0. Another example is in problem set. Let's say that Tony went to a gym for some workout. He stretches, flexes, and lifts some weights. One of the dumbbell weighs 300 Newton and he lifts it with a 400 Newton. How much is his total force exerted? So since Tony is moving the dumbbell upward, so saan napunta yung dumbbell? Correct, pataas. Saan pumunta yung kamay ni Tony? Yes, pataas din. So, since the two forces applied are all at the same direction, all you need to do is what? Add or subtract? Correct. You should add the forces being applied. So, we have 300 Newton plus 400 Newton is equivalent to good 700 Newton. That is the total net force. Okay? So since we have a value, then then we can say that the dumbbell is moving. Okay? Kasi 'di ba katulad na nabanggit ko kanina, kung ang net force niya ay 0, ibig sabihin yung object ay nakahinto. Pero kapag ang object ay hindi po 0, then that is in motion or gumagalaw siya. Another problem set. Then, Tony went to the grocery to buy for his day-to-day use. So, let's say tapos na si Tony na mag-gym. So, dumiretso naman siya ngayon sa grocery store. He pushes the cart using 200 Newton while the cart has 150 Newton. How much is his total force exerted? So, since hawak na niya yung grocery cart, saan papunta yung cart? Good, sa harapan niya. Saan papunta si Tony? Naglalakad din siya paharap. So, it means that the cart and Tony have the same direction when it comes to forces. So, since parehas yung direction ng forces applied nila, then also, we are going to okay, good job. We are going to add those forces. So, 200 Newton plus 150 Newton is equivalent to 350 Newton. Okay, so enable for us to understand this well, let us apply this idea using the rolling ball. In figure 7, we have here the physical concept illustrated on a ball. So, for this, you need to remember these 4 different keywords. The first one is the magnitude, the second one is the direction, the third one is the point of application, and the last one is the line of action. So, let us say, for this ball to move, you need to exert force. What kind of force? Is it a push or a pull? Good, that is a push. So, the part where you applied the forces is called as the point of application. The path where the ball rolls is called the line of action. Okay? So, to understand this well, let us define the following. Using the ideas about balanced forces and unbalanced forces. So again, we will be using those 4 different keywords to understand the difference between balanced forces and unbalanced forces. To describe a force, you must know 2 things. You must know the magnitude and the direction of the force. So since we will be talking about magnitude and direction, so it means we are referring to distance or displacement. Yes, displacement. Suppose 2 teams are playing tug-of-war, as shown in figure 15. Each team is pulling with equal magnitude of force or FA and FB. So, it means that the force applied by group A, known as the FA, and the group B, known as the FB, are in equal, same amount. Kasi mapapansin mo, walang gumagalaw sa kanila. Yung amount ng force na ina-apply ng group A is also equivalent to the amount of force applied by group B. Neither team can make the other team move. So, kahit na anong pull nila, hindi nila mahatak yung yung isa't isa. Ibig sabihin, equal na equal yung forces na ina-apply nila. Forces that are equal in magnitude, but opposite in direction are called balanced forces. As you can see, the forces applied by FA is going to the left side, while FB is going on the right side. So the directions are opposite. But the magnitude they exerted when it comes to force are both equal. So balanced force do not cause a change in motion. When balanced forces act on an object at rest, the object will not move. So when we say balanced forces, the object is not moving. That's why it is balanced. Okay? So, what about unbalanced force? When you push a table and it moves, so gumalaw siya, unbalanced forces are present. So, automatically, dun magkakaroon na tayo ng idea. So, when we say unbalanced forces, the object is moving. When we say balanced forces, the object is not moving. Forces that cause a change in the motion of an object are called unbalanced force. Unbalanced forces are not equal and in opposite direction. So, hindi magkaparehas yung forces na in-apply nila. Take a look at figure 16. So, a representation of unbalanced forces in a tug-of-war game. So, makikita nyo, mas malaki yung arrow na nire-represent ng FB compared sa FA, indicating that the amount of force in FB is greater than FA. So, mas malaki yung in-exert nila. So, suppose that one of the teams in tug-of-war, as shown in figure 16, exerts greater force, which is the FB, on the ground than the other team. The forces applied on the ground would no longer be equal. So, hindi na sila ngayon pantay. Even if the directions are opposite, the magnitudes now are not equal. Okay? One team would be able to pull the other team in the direction of the larger force. So, ang tanong, saan ngayon mapupunta lahat ng tao sa paghahatak nila? Good. So, doon sa FB. So, the moment na nag-pull yung FB group, then group FA will also move towards their direction even if yung forces na in-apply nila ay opposite. Okay? Kasi natalo sila nung greater ang amount ng force. Okay? So, always remember, if it is unbalanced force, the forces are not equal. And also, in opposite direction. Magkaiba sila ng direction. May mga times din na katulad niyan, ang naging result niya, naging same ang direction. Kasi natatalo na siya eh. So, sa unang part, magkahiwalay sila ng direction. Magka-opposite sila ng direction. But later on, as Group B pulls the Group A, saan na ngayon mapupunta yung Group A na yon? Yes, papunta na rin sa kanila. Pero as you can see, meron pa rin siyang motion. Okay? Yung force na in-apply, opposite, pero dahil greater si FB, ano mangyayari? Mahatak nila si A, mapupunta na rin sa kanilang direction. Okay. Let us relate these concepts to the first law of motion. So for us to be able to understand this, let us now go to the first law of motion. This first law of motion will be discussed to you using our next video. So, hope you watch this. So, I'll see you all on our first law of motion discussion. Thank you.